There's something powerful about the instant a legend singles you out. It shifts everything. Not the flashy kind of recognition that arrives with headlines or endorsement contracts, but the subtle, intentional moment when someone who has experienced it all, conquered it all, and given up so much looks across a tennis court and decides you deserve their attention. That's exactly what unfolded between Rafael Nadal and a 20-year-old from the Philippines named Alex Eala. And the tennis world, so fixated on rankings, trophies, and Grand Slam totals, was completely caught off guard by it. Nadal had already been retired for an entire year. He had stepped away from the game after the Davis Cup final, leaving behind 22 Grand Slam victories and a legacy so immense that many believed nothing he did afterward could match its significance. They were mistaken. Because on the first anniversary of that final match, Nadal lifted a racket once more, stepped onto the court, and the only person standing across from him was Alex. Not a past champion, not a top 10 contender, but a young player still shaping her identity. Still battling through the demanding layers of the professional circuit, still discovering who she would ultimately become. And by choosing her, Nadal communicated something to the tennis world that no media appearance ever could. To truly understand why that moment resonated so deeply, you have to rewind to the very start. The real beginning, before rankings, before headlines, before viral clips. You have to go back to 2018, to a 13-year-old girl boarding a flight from Manila to Spain with a racket, a dream, and absolutely no certainty that any of it would succeed. The Philippines is a nation fueled by sport. Boxing runs through its veins. Basketball feels like a national obsession. Volleyball has its icons and emotional moments. But tennis had never truly been part of that narrative in any meaningful way. Alex didn't let that matter. She wasn't focused on what her country was expected to produce. She was focused on what she could become. And that difference, that refusal to be limited by expectations, would go on to define her entire journey. She traveled to Spain for a trial week at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca. And even before she arrived, something occurred that felt less like coincidence and more like destiny stepping in early. At Madrid airport, her family unexpectedly saw Nadal himself. And in a moment that almost feels too perfect to believe, Alex, just 13 years old, wide-eyed and anxious, jet-lagged and running on instinct, she made a bold choice. She went after him. As she later shared on The Served with Andy Roddick, they literally chased him down. A young teenager from Manila sprinting through an airport terminal after the greatest clay court player in history, before she had played a single match at his academy, before anyone recognized her name. That's where everything truly begins. She stayed. She trained there for 7 years. The academy became her universe, her second home, her school, and the place where she proved herself, all at once. And success began to come with a quiet certainty that, looking back, feels almost inevitable. At 14, she captured the doubles title at the Junior Australian Open. A year later, she claimed the same achievement at the Junior French Open. In 2022, she accomplished something no Filipino had ever done before, winning the singles title at the Junior US Open, the first in her country's history. By 2024, she was knocking at the door of the professional level. By 2025, she didn't just knock, she stepped straight through. She entered the Miami Open ranked 140th in the world, holding a wildcard spot, the kind of entry that usually leads to a brief appearance and an early exit. No one saw what was coming. She defeated Katie Volinets. She overcame Yelena Ostapenko. She took down Madison Keys, the reigning Australian Open champion and world number 5. And she did it in straight sets with a scoreline that looked almost effortless, 6-4, 6-2. Clinical is the best way to describe it. A style of tennis that doesn't shout for attention but quietly breaks everything in front of it. Then she stepped onto the court against Aryna Sabalenka, a 5-time Grand Slam winner, ranked second in the world, someone who had personally attended Alex's graduation from the Nadal Academy just 2 years earlier, invited by Nadal himself. Alex defeated her as well, 6-2, 5-7. And the Philippines exploded with excitement, the kind that happens when history unfolds and everyone feels it at once. From Monaco, adjusting to life after professional tennis, Nadal picked up his phone and sent a congratulatory message. It was heartfelt and sincere, and it went unread for 4 days. That small, almost humorous detail became one of the most talked about moments of the tournament. Alex's phone was overwhelmed. Notifications poured in from every direction. Fans, media, sponsors, coaches, and players she had admired growing up. She had intentionally chosen to stay away from her phone, keeping her focus locked on the match instead of the noise surrounding it. It was the right decision, but it meant that buried within that flood of messages, Nadal's text remained unopened. When she finally saw it days later, she apologized. He had waited 4 days for her response. 22 Grand Slam titles, 209 weeks as world number 1, and he was waiting 4 days for a 20-year-old from Manila to check her messages. And if you understand anything about Alex as a competitor, that moment says everything about who she is. She wasn't chasing approval, not even from the man who helped shape her path. She was focused, competing, fully in the moment. Those instincts don't just appear overnight. They're built over years inside an environment created by someone who understood them better than anyone. Rafael Nadal was no longer satisfied watching from afar. That became clear on November 19, 2025, a date the tennis world won't forget anytime soon. Exactly 1 year after his final professional appearance at the Davis Cup final, Nadal stepped back onto a court at his academy and picked up a racket again. Waiting across the net was Alex Eala, ranked 50th in the world at the time. The timing wasn't random. Nothing about it was. On the 1-year mark of the greatest clay court career ever ending, Nadal chose to return, if only briefly, even just for practice, with a player he seemed to believe could carry part of his legacy into the future. Social media reacted instantly. Within hours, the footage spread everywhere. People analyzed every detail, every rally, treating each second like it held deeper meaning. Was he coaching her? Was this the start of a mentorship? Was the greatest clay court player ever about to pass his knowledge to a 20-year-old Filipino left-hander? The questions were loud, but the truth was much quieter. What Alex later shared about that session caught many off guard. Speaking at a press conference in Abu Dhabi, she admitted she felt nervous, truly nervous. 7 years at the academy, and still that feeling remained the first time she properly shared a court with him. She described the practice as physically intense, then paused, almost surprised by it herself. He had been away from competition for a full year, retired, finished, and yet the intensity was still there. That's who Nadal is. The fire doesn't turn off. It's not something he switches on. It's part of him, built so deeply into his identity that even retirement can't erase it. But the physical challenge wasn't the most important part of that session. It was what he told her. He emphasized the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people. Simple advice, something that sounds obvious until you realize how rarely it's truly followed, and how powerful it can be when it is. Then he became specific. He focused on her forehand. He had observations, details, suggestions, offered without being asked, because that's what real belief looks like. It doesn't wait for permission. Nadal's forehand is considered one of the most devastating shots the sport has ever seen. The spin, the angles, the relentless force, the way it has broken down opponents on every surface. For him to study a young player's forehand and see something worth investing in, that isn't casual. That carries meaning. Alex understood that. She said the session would stay with her forever, and she meant it, not as a performance but as something real. Watching nearby was Tony Nadal, Rafael's uncle and longtime mentor. His uncle, the man who guided him from the start, the mastermind behind one of the greatest careers in sports history, Tony Nadal, had also been watching Alex's growth closely. And when he finally shared his opinion, it wasn't cautious or vague. He said that once she fully refines her game, she has the potential to be among the very best in the world. When the person who shaped Rafa speaks like that, people pay attention. The tennis world paid attention. And then 2026 arrived, bringing with it the full force of everything building around her. The expectations of an entire nation, a worldwide fanbase that had embraced her journey, and now the quiet endorsement of one of the sport's most decorated figures. She began the year in Auckland, then moved on to Melbourne, earning an exhibition victory over Olga Danilovic. She reached her first-ever main draw at the Australian Open, a tournament she had previously failed to qualify for 3 straight years. The Philippines was watching. The world was watching. And somewhere in Monaco, Rafael Nadal was watching too. But the real question hovered over the clay season it always had. For all her success on hard courts, clay remained a weakness, a surface where she had managed only 3 WTA main draw victories in her career. The European clay swing, Madrid, Rome, Roland Garros. That was the test everyone had been waiting for, and everyone knew it. Then Miami came again, her symbolic home where everything had started a year earlier. This time she arrived ranked 29th in the world, seeded 31st, earning a first-round bye. The wild-card newcomer was gone. Now she carried expectations, and that kind of pressure feels different. She battled through a grueling 3-hour, 20-minute match against Laura Siegemund, coming back after losing the first set in a match that reveals what a player is truly made of. She handled it. She defeated Magda Linette in straight sets. Then, in the round of 16, she faced Karolina Muchova, and this time the wall didn't break. The score was 6-0, 6-2. Complete control from the very first point. Muchova broke her immediately and never gave the momentum back. The only resistance Alex showed came from holding serve twice midway through the second set. It wasn't just a loss. It was a reminder that the gap between promise and elite can feel massive on any given day. It pushed her record against Czech players to 0 wins and 12 losses. 12. That number doesn't hide. It stays there, honest and uncomfortable, demanding attention. She was projected to drop 16 places in the rankings, sliding back near 45th in the world, losing valuable points she couldn't easily replace. The questions came quickly. Was this a second-year slump? Had expectations become too heavy too soon? Had the Nadal effect, the attention, the belief, the spotlight, created pressure she wasn't ready to carry yet? And then Alex stood in front of the cameras and gave an answer clearer than any scoreboard could provide. She said that after a tough loss, she reminds herself that she's not as bad as it feels. That was all. No excuses, no attempts to perform strength for the audience. She was processing disappointment in real time, openly, with a level of honesty rarely seen at that level of sport. She accepted the result, took it in, and chose to move forward. Then she added something else that made people pause. She said managing her time mattered, that she needed to enjoy life on tour. That at 20 years old she wanted to live, not just play tennis. 20 years old, ranked inside the world's top 50, coming off one of the toughest defeats of her career, and she was talking about balance, happiness, and being a complete person. That's not avoidance. That is growth. That is clarity. And it doesn't appear by chance. It's built through the right setting, the right influences, the right voice reminding you, sometimes in the middle of practice, that the people around you matter more than almost anything else. Rafael Nadal told her exactly that. Surround yourself with the right people. She listened. And somewhere between the advice on her forehand, the early training sessions, and the 7 years spent inside those academy walls, she absorbed something deeper than just words. She understood the principle beneath them, the one Nadal himself demonstrated through every injury, every comeback, every moment the world expected him to fall and he refused. Resilience isn't about avoiding pain. It's about refusing to let it define you. He collapsed onto the clay at Roland Garros. He competed through injuries that would have ended most careers. He returned when no one believed he could, and then did it again. Those lessons are built into the foundation of his academy, and Alex spent 7 years living inside that environment. Now the clay season approaches. Madrid, Roland Garros, the surface where Nadal claimed 14 titles and created a legacy so powerful that the main court now carries his name. Alex has just 3 WTA main draw victories on clay so far. The gap is real. But the man who made a career out of closing impossible gaps is still watching, still invested, still present in ways that go far beyond a single training session. He picked up a racket after a full year away from the game and stepped onto the court, and the only player he chose to share that moment with was her. That wasn't for attention. It wasn't for headlines. It was a quiet, deliberate decision by a legend that she was worth his time. Alex is 20 years old, ranked inside the world's top 50, carrying the expectations of a nation and the attention of a global audience, learning how to compete at the highest level while also learning how to live as a complete person. Her story is still being written, but she's building it with stronger foundations than almost any young player in the sport today, because she has the right people around her, exactly as Rafa told her she would.